Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you tonight, you didn't show up by accident. You didn't stumble into this moment by chance. No, this is a divine appointment. I believe deep in my heart that God is getting ready to do something big in your life. You may not see it yet. Things might look ordinary, even difficult right now, but don't be fooled by how it seems God is setting you up for a blessing so big, so beyond your expectations that it's going to leave you standing in awe. You've been faithful in the small things. You've kept pressing forward when it was hard. You've stayed in faith even when you didn't understand. And I want to encourage you, your obedience has not gone unnoticed. Your prayers, your tears, your quiet trust in the midnight hour, they've all been seen by the one who holds it all. And I believe he's saying today, I'm about to turn things around. I'm about to open doors no man can shut. I'm about to bless you in ways you never dreamed possible. So don't get discouraged by the delay. Don't let the detour make you think the promise is off track. Sometimes the setup doesn't look like a blessing, it looks like a setback. But what you think is the enemy trying to hold you back is really God positioning you for something greater. He's getting the right people lined up. He's orchestrating the details. He's moving behind the scenes. You're closer than you think. You're on the edge of a breakthrough. That challenge, that difficulty, it's not the end of your story. It's the setup. The blessing is coming. The healing is coming. The promotion, the restoration, the right relationship is all on the way. God is setting you up for a big blessing. Your current struggle is not a stop sign, it's a step for something greater. Too often when we go through difficulties, delays, or disappointments, it's easy to think that somehow we've been forgotten, that maybe we missed our chance, or that things just aren't going to work out. We look at the struggle and think it's the end of the story. But in reality, that struggle is not the end, it's simply a chapter in the greater plan that God is unfolding in your life. What you're facing right now might seem unfair, uncomfortable, or even painful, but it's not without purpose. God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't allow challenges into our lives without attaching them to a promise. That hardship, that closed door, that lonely season is not where the story stops. It's actually where God begins to set the stage for something greater. When you're in the middle of a struggle, it's natural to want to give up. You might feel tired. You might feel like you've been praying and nothing's changing. But just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. Sometimes He's rearranging things behind the scenes. Sometimes He's allowing you to grow, to strengthen, to become the person who's ready for what He's about to bring. Think of a seed planted in the ground. For a while, it looks like nothing is happening. It's buried, it's dark, it's isolated. But underneath the soil, something powerful is taking place. Roots are growing, a foundation is being formed, and in due time, it pushes through the ground and blossoms. That's exactly how God works in our lives. Your struggle isn't wasted, it's producing something in you that you can't see yet. Many of the greatest blessings in life are born out of struggle. Think about the people in Scripture who went through difficult seasons before stepping into their purpose. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. From the outside, it looked like one setback after another. But what seemed like a series of unfortunate events was actually God moving Joseph into position for leadership. If he had never been in prison, he would have never met Pharaoh. If he had never met Pharaoh, he wouldn't have become second in command over all of Egypt. The struggle wasn't the end of his story, it was part of the setup. In the same way, what you're going through is not random. That struggle is serving a purpose. It might be preparing you for a level you've never operated at before. It might be building your character, deepening your faith, or teaching you to rely fully on God. You see, if everything came easy, we wouldn't develop perseverance. We wouldn't grow. It's in the hard times that we discover who we really are. It's in those seasons that we lean into God more deeply. And it's often in those moments of desperation that we hear His voice more clearly. God uses our struggles to stretch us, to refine us, and to prepare us for blessings bigger than what we would have chosen for ourselves. Sometimes the greatest setup looks like the greatest challenge. It's easy to praise God when everything's going right, but can you trust Him when it's not? Can you keep walking when you don't understand the path? The enemy wants you to think the struggle is a stop sign that it's over, that it's not worth it, that nothing's changing. But God is saying, I'm still writing your story. Don't stop now. What I'm preparing you for is greater than what you're leaving behind. Your struggle is not a sign of abandonment. It's a sign of preparation. It's God getting you ready, molding you, shaping you, and strengthening you for what's next. You may be walking through the fire, but the fire isn't there to burn you, it's there to forge you. It's there to purify what's not needed anymore and bring out what's been hidden deep inside you. Just like gold is refined through heat, your character and calling are refined through pressure. And just like the most beautiful diamonds are formed under intense conditions, the greatness in you is being revealed through your trials. Don't let the enemy convince you that the struggle means failure. It means you're in motion. It means growth is happening. It means God is not finished with you yet. The pressure you feel is a sign that something is shifting. The struggle isn't random, it's a setup. Delay is not denial. God's timing is always perfect. One of the hardest things to accept in life is waiting. We live in a world that celebrates instant results, where everything is expected to happen quickly. From fast food to high-speed internet to next-day delivery, we've been conditioned to expect immediate outcomes. But God doesn't operate on our schedule. His ways are higher, His timing is divine, and what seems like a delay to us is often a strategic part of His plan. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just because you haven't seen the breakthrough, the healing, the promotion, or the answer to that prayer doesn't mean it's been denied. In fact, sometimes the waiting is proof that what you're believing for is so significant, it requires divine preparation. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't expect fruit the next day. You water it, nurture it, and allow time for it to grow. Likewise, God plants dreams and promises in your heart, and those dreams take time to develop. The delay is not a denial of the dream, it's a process of development. The waiting season is where your roots go deep. It's where your character is built, your faith is tested, and your trust is refined. In the silence, in the seasons where it feels like nothing is changing, God is often doing His deepest work. He's lining up the right opportunities, clearing out what doesn't belong, and preparing your heart so that when the blessing arrives, you'll be ready to carry it with strength and humility. We can look at Scripture and see time and time again how delay played a role in the fulfillment of destiny. Abraham was promised a son, but he waited 25 years before Isaac was born. David was anointed king as a teenager, yet he spent years running from Saul before he ever sat on the throne. Jesus waited 30 years before beginning His public ministry. None of these delays were random. They were purposeful. They weren't punishment, they were preparation. God knew what each of these individuals needed to face, endure, and overcome before they could fully walk into what He had planned for them. In your own life, that delay you're facing is not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's a sign that He's working on something far greater than you can imagine. Sometimes what you're asking for is not being denied, it's just not the right time. If God gave you everything you asked for the moment you asked, you might not be ready to handle it. A blessing given prematurely can become a burden. That's why God takes His time. He wants to ensure that when the door opens, you'll be able to walk through it with confidence. When the opportunity comes, you'll have the maturity to sustain it. When the relationship arrives, you'll have the discernment to value it. It's not about simply receiving what you want, it's about becoming who you need to be in order to thrive in what God has for you. The delay may be uncomfortable. It may feel like you've been overlooked or forgotten. But remember, silence is not absence. Just because God isn't speaking doesn't mean He isn't moving. Just because the phone hasn't rung, the offer hasn't come, or the healing hasn't manifested doesn't mean He isn't at work. Often the very things we view as delays are really divine appointments. They are carefully orchestrated pauses designed to build our patience, deepen our trust, and make us more dependent on Him. What feels like waiting is often a holding pattern for your protection. You may not see the full picture, but God does. He knows what's coming. He sees what you cannot see. And He's not just trying to give you what you want, He's trying to give you what's best. In the waiting, we learn how to worship with no music, how to trust with no evidence, and how to hope when there's no sign. That's powerful faith. That's the kind of trust that moves mountains. That's the kind of heart that heaven responds to. You're not being denied, you're being developed. The delay is not a dead end. It's not the enemy winning. It's not your dream dying. It's heaven's timing aligning. When God says yes, no force on earth can stop Him. But until then, the delay is your classroom. It's where you're being equipped. It's where your endurance is being strengthened. It's where your confidence in God is being solidified. The waiting may feel long, but it is not wasted. Every moment has purpose, and every second is bringing you one step closer to the promise. What looks like a setback is really a divine setup. So often in life, things happen that catch us off guard. We face disappointments, closed doors, unexpected changes, and sudden detours. It's easy to look at these moments and feel like we've lost ground, like we've gone backward, or like all the progress we made has been erased. But what we don't always realize in the moment is that these apparent setbacks are not random, they are part of a bigger picture that only God can see. The very thing you think is pushing you off course may be the thing that's positioning you exactly where you need to be. God's plan is never derailed by circumstances. What looks like rejection may actually be redirection. What feels like failure may be a doorway to favor. Sometimes God has to let things fall apart so He can rebuild them better. He'll close a door not to punish you, but to protect you. He'll let a plan unravel not because He's forgotten you, but because He has something greater in store. That lost job may be leading you to a new calling. That friendship that ended may be making room for a new connection that will bless your future. That opportunity that slipped through your fingers may have looked good, but it wasn't God's best. And because He loves you too much to let you settle, He'll remove what you think you want so. He can give you what you truly need. There's a story in the Bible that beautifully illustrates this truth. When Lazarus became sick, his sisters Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus, asking Him to come quickly and heal their brother. But Jesus didn't rush. In fact, He waited several days. By the time He arrived, Lazarus had already died. To Mary and Martha, this delay seemed like a devastating setback. They said, "Lord, if You had been here, our brother wouldn't have died." In their minds, it was too late. The opportunity had passed. But Jesus had a greater plan. He wasn't just planning to heal Lazarus, He was about to raise him from the dead. What they thought was a setback was really a setup for a miracle that would reveal God's power in a greater way than they had ever imagined. That's how God works. He allows situations that look like dead ends so He can demonstrate His resurrection power. He allows the odds to be stacked against you so that when the victory comes, everyone will know it was by His hand. The setback creates the stage for His glory. The closed door creates the path to something better. The broken plan becomes the birthplace of a new vision. But in the moment, it doesn't feel like a setup. It feels like loss. It feels like defeat. That's why we have to walk by faith and not by sight. If we judge our lives by what we see, we'll miss what God is doing behind the scenes. The enemy would love for you to believe that your setback is the end of the story. He wants to convince you that it's too late, that you've missed your chance, that nothing good can come from what's happened. But God specializes in turning things around. He takes what was meant for evil and uses it for good. He restores what was lost. He multiplies what was broken. And He brings beauty from ashes. That situation that felt like it knocked you off course may be the very thing that launches you into your destiny. You thought you were going backward, but God was rerouting you to something better. It's in the low places that God often does His highest work. It's in the detours that you discover strength you didn't know you had. It's in the struggle that you learn to depend on God more fully. And it's through the things you never wanted to go through that God brings the greatest growth. So don't despise the setback. Don't curse the disappointment. Instead, trust that God knows what He's doing. Trust that He sees the full picture, even when you can only see the puzzle pieces. You may not understand why it had to happen the way it did, but you can be confident that God is still in control. What feels like a delay is often God getting everything and everyone in place. What feels like an ending may be the exact moment God is beginning something new. Your setback is not wasted. It's a setup for something far greater than you can imagine. God is working behind the scenes in ways you can't see. There are moments in life when everything feels still, when it seems like nothing is changing, when our prayers go unanswered and our efforts feel unnoticed. We wonder if God has forgotten us or if He's even listening at all. But the truth is, just because you can't see movement doesn't mean there isn't progress. God doesn't always show His hand. He doesn't always announce what He's doing. But that doesn't mean He isn't doing anything. In fact, some of the most important work God does happens in silence, in hidden places, in moments when we feel alone or unsure. He's not idle. He's strategic. He's working out details, orchestrating connections, setting up opportunities, and removing obstacles, all in the unseen realm. Think about a builder constructing a foundation. Before you ever see the walls go up, there is digging, measuring, pouring, and setting that must take place beneath the surface. It might not look impressive. It might not even be visible. But without that unseen work, the structure could never stand. In the same way, God is laying foundations in your life. He's preparing things under the surface. He's dealing with things in your heart, preparing people to enter your path, guiding situations to intersect with your journey. It may feel like nothing is happening, but in the spiritual realm, things are shifting. Angels are being dispatched. Favor is being aligned. Doors are being crafted that will open in due time. So often we want to see evidence before we believe. We want to see the clouds part, the answer come, the door open. But faith is about believing even when you can't see. It's about trusting that the God who promised is faithful to complete what He started. When you live with that kind of faith, you stop being shaken by silence. You stop letting the lack of evidence define your level of trust. You begin to understand that the silence doesn't mean God is absent. It means He's working on something that requires your patience. If He showed you everything, it wouldn't require faith. But He wants to build your faith because faith is the currency of the kingdom. It's what moves mountains, opens doors, and releases miracles. There are countless stories in Scripture where God worked behind the scenes to bring about something miraculous. Look at Esther. She was a young Jewish woman living in exile, chosen to be queen in a foreign land. At the time, it may have seemed random, like she just happened to be in the right place at the right time. But behind the scenes, God was setting her up to save her people. He was placing her in position, orchestrating events, preparing hearts. When the time came, she was ready to step into her moment of purpose. But none of that would have been possible without the silent, hidden work of God in the background. What looked like coincidence was actually divine coordination. The same is true for you. That conversation you had that led to a new opportunity wasn't by accident. That job you didn't get may have been God's protection. That move you were hesitant to make might be the very thing that brings you into alignment with your destiny. God knows the end from the beginning. He sees around corners you can't see around. He hears conversations you're not in. He influences decisions that you may never even be aware of. And He does it all while you're simply being faithful in your daily life, trusting Him one step at a time. Sometimes we think the only miracles are the big, flashy moments when something incredible happens in plain sight. But many of God's miracles begin in quiet obedience, in prayers whispered in the dark, in tears cried when no one is watching. Those moments matter. They are heard, collected, remembered by the God who never slumbers or sleeps. You may feel like you're walking through a dry season, but God is working. You may feel like you're stuck, but God is moving things on your behalf. You may feel like nothing is shifting, but heaven is aligning something new. The beauty of trusting God is knowing you don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to see every step. You just have to stay faithful where you are. Keep praying, keep believing, keep showing up with expectation. Just because it's not visible doesn't mean it's not valuable. Just because you can't trace His hand doesn't mean you can't trust His heart. He is at work in the silence. He is preparing the way even when the road looks unclear. He is doing things in the background that you'll look back on one day and say, only God could have done that. Stay faithful in the small things. Promotion comes through obedience. It's easy to get excited about big dreams, about the promise of promotion, about stepping into something great that you believe God has for your life. But often, before the big opportunities come, there are small, hidden, ordinary assignments where God tests your heart, shapes your character, and builds your foundation. The truth is, the path to promotion is not always glamorous. It's paved with consistency, humility, and a willingness to do what no one else sees. It's waking up every day and showing up with integrity, even when it feels like nothing is changing. It's doing the right thing even when no one is watching. The small things may seem insignificant, but they are sacred in God's eyes. He watches how you steward the little before He entrusts you with more. David was anointed to be king, but before he ever wore a crown, he was out in the fields tending sheep. That was his assignment. It wasn't prestigious. It wasn't public, but it was important. And David did it with excellence. He wasn't grumbling, complaining, or cutting corners. He took his role seriously, protecting the sheep, playing his harp, writing songs to God. That season in the pasture prepared him for the palace. The skills he developed while no one was watching became the strengths he relied on when everyone was looking. His faithfulness in the small was the key that unlocked his promotion to the throne. Jesus Himself taught that whoever is faithful with little will be entrusted with much. That's not just a nice saying, it's a spiritual principle. God looks at your attitude when you're asked to do something simple. He watches how you respond when you're serving in the background, when you're not getting recognition, when you're in a season that feels slow or overlooked. It's in those moments that your character is being tested. Will you remain grateful when the assignment isn't glamorous? Will you keep giving your best when it feels like you're not being noticed? Will you obey even when it doesn't make sense? Sometimes we get frustrated because we're praying for big breakthroughs, but we're not valuing the daily responsibilities right in front of us. We want the promotion, but we don't want the process. But God uses the process to prepare us for the promise. He sees what others don't see. He values what the world overlooks. That job you think is beneath you, that routine that feels boring, that relationship that requires extra knows are all opportunities for obedience. And every act of obedience, no matter how small, matters. It's a seed you're planting, and in due time it will produce a harvest. The story of the servant in the parable of the talents reminds us of this principle. The master gave his servants different amounts of resources and went away. When he returned, he found that one servant had multiplied what was given to him through diligence and responsibility. That servant was praised and promoted. The one who did nothing with what he was given lost the opportunity altogether. The message is clear. What you do with what you have now determines you'll be trusted with later. God doesn't ask you to have it all figured out. He asks you to be faithful with what's in your hands. You don't have to be in a spotlight to be in the will of God. You don't need a title to have influence. Your daily acts of obedience, loving your family, honoring your commitments, working with excellence, forgiving quickly, showing up on time, encouraging others, those are all things that heaven values. And often it's in doing those small things well that God opens big doors. Promotion isn't always about status or recognition. Sometimes it's an increase in peace, in wisdom, in favor, in influence. Sometimes a shift in your mindset or a new level of spiritual authority. But it always begins with obedience. When you stay faithful in the small things, you're saying to God, you can trust me. I don't need to be seen to be significant. I don't need applause to stay consistent. I'm here to serve, to honor you, and to walk in obedience regardless of the outcome. That's the kind of heart God promotes. That's the kind of spirit that heaven responds to. When you choose to stay committed where you are, when you stop chasing recognition and start embracing responsibility, you're positioning yourself for something greater. You're closer to your breakthrough than you think. There are moments when the weight of waiting, the pressure of trials, and the silence of unanswered prayers can make you feel like you're miles away from your promise. You've been faithful, you've stayed in the fight, but the results haven't shown up yet. You've been believing for healing, restoration, favor, or direction, but everything in the natural seems to contradict what you're hoping for. That's the place where many give up, not because they don't believe, but because they can't see how close they are. But often the enemy fights hardest when you're nearest to your victory. The darkness tends to be thickest just before the dawn. The pressure increases because something is about to shift. You may not realize it, but what you've been praying for, what you've been preparing for, what you've been standing in faith for, could be just one moment, one connection, one decision away. Think of the story of the Israelites as they marched around the walls of Jericho. God told them to walk around the city once a day for 6 days and then 7 times on the 7th day. Imagine how that felt. Day after day, walking in silence, not seeing any cracks in the wall. No sign that their obedience was making any difference. But what they didn't realize is that something was happening beneath the surface. Every lap was part of a bigger plan. Every step was obedience adding pressure to the enemy's stronghold. And on that 7th day, at just the right time, the walls came crashing down. If they had stopped on a 5th or 6th day, they would have missed the breakthrough. But because they kept going, they saw God do the impossible. It's no different in your life. You may feel like you've been circling the same issue, the same prayer, the same struggle. You've been sowing seeds, but you haven't seen the harvest. You've been walking in faith, but the walls haven't moved. Don't stop. Don't quit. The breakthrough might be just around the corner. God hasn't brought you as far to leave you now. Everything you've walked through has been preparation. Every tear, every delay has not been wasted. It's been building something inside of you. It's been aligning you with heaven's timeline. And just because you don't see the finish line doesn't mean you're not close. So often we think of breakthroughs as sudden. One day everything changes. But the truth is, what looks sudden is usually the result of long obedience. It's the compound effect of daily faithfulness, of choosing hope when it's easier to give in to doubt, of continuing to praise when you don't feel like it, of declaring God's promises even when you see no evidence. Breakthroughs are birthed in persistence. They are conceived in the quiet, hidden decisions to keep trusting, keep loving, keep forgiving, keep going. And then at the appointed time, God breathes on all of it and everything begins to move. You don't have to know when or how it will happen. You just need to know that God is faithful. He sees every act of obedience. He hears every whispered prayer. He collects every tear you've cried. He is not ignoring your situation. He's aligning the right circumstances to bring about the greatest impact. Sometimes what takes time in the natural is because God is doing a deep work in the spiritual. He's not just trying to get you to the blessing. He's preparing you to carry it well. And sometimes He's preparing others who are part of your journey. There are people and places being prepared for your arrival. You're not waiting alone. Heaven is working. When a woman is about to give birth, the contractions intensify right before the delivery. It's painful, uncomfortable, and exhausting, but it's also a sign that the promise is near. In the same way, the increased pressure in your life may be an indication that you're about to step into something new. You may feel like giving up, but that's the moment you need to press in even more. You're closer than you think. The promise is not just ahead, it's near. Keep pushing. Keep praying. Keep believing. The enemy wouldn't be fighting so hard if you weren't on the edge of something significant. There's a shift coming, that breakthrough, that open door, that restoration that's on the horizon. You might not see it with your eyes yet, but it's already moving in the unseen. God is not limited by what you see. He's the God who brings water from a rock, who parts seas, who makes a way where there seems to be no way. So don't let discouragement have the final word. Don't let delay make you doubt the promise. What you've been waiting for is on its way. You're not standing still, you're standing at the threshold of the breakthrough.